To hand flamer or not to hand flamer? Probably the most commonly asked question that anyone has ever asked when it comes to getting advice on Genestealer calls, apart from maybe like shotguns or auto guns, the great debate. But anyway, today we're going to answer the hand flamer question in detail, extreme high definition detail, so there can never be any doubt ever again. Quite frankly, I'm just tired of repeating the same advice over and over again on Facebook and Reddit and stuff, But yeah, if you have a really short attention span, let me summarize right now at the start of the video so you can get the quick and easy answer and then go and get on with your life. Hand flamers are fucking boss. Take them, in fact take loads of them, and find out for yourself in the world of Warhammer 40k, many factions genuinely do not like being swamped in the sheer large volumes of Promethium that we can put out. Take them, they're good. Now, if you want the more complex and thought out reasoning, stick around because there's plenty to discuss. I went over this ages ago in my old Acolyte Hybrids video, but that was before the new codex came out and opened up a whole new box of tricks to complement the humble hand flamer. Anyway, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. As usual, it's probably a good idea to cover the basics first. The hand flamer is a weapon upgrade you can get for your Acolyte Hybrids and your Metamorph Hybrids. As you can probably guess, it's a pistol version of a classic flamer, so it's shorter range, not quite as strong, cheaper, and there's no AP. On a very basic level, it's like having a load of auto-hitting las pistols. Not very exciting so far, I know. Each individual one of these costs you 3 points, so if you want a full squad of maybe 10 guys kitted out with them, you're adding 30 points to the cost of that unit. Yes, that can seem quite an investment at face value, but as we're going to discuss, I think that investment is more than worthwhile. Something to bear in mind before we go on, that in the old days, an Acolyte Hybrid could hold a heavy mining weapon like a rock saw and take a hand flamer at the same time. That has sadly been scrapped. Now you have to sacrifice your pistol to take one of the awesome close combat tools. The same is also true now for a cool icon. For some reason, an Acolyte or Metamorph cannot hold an icon and a pistol at the same time, even though they got fucking 3 arms and a holster. Does not make sense to me, but that's the way it is. Realistically, if you're bringing the typical squad of 10 Acolytes, remember they can go up to 15, then you'll most likely be carrying the max of 4 rock cutting tools, and therefore the other 6 guys in the squad, including the leader, can take a hand flamer. Most people will tell you that the cult icon is not worth its points cost on an Acolyte squad, which I definitely agree with, so let's write that out of the equation. But anyway, the fact that you can only have 6 hand flamers in this loadout now helps you streamline your costs a little bit. Sure, I'd rather have the full 10 in a squad any day. You know, I'm a real all or nothing person when it comes to list building, but now you don't get a choice, so that's what it is. Let's look at the stats. Let's get the boring bit out of the way. So 12-inch range, that's more than enough, trust me. You'll always be getting your Acolytes up close and personal anyway, so that's fine. Just shed a tear for any of us old school cult players who remember the days when they were just 6-inch range, which, to be fair, wasn't even that long ago now. It was just this hilariously shitty situation that we had to use a 2 CP stratagem just to deep strike into flamer range, and yet still we thought it was cool and did it anyway. Strength, only 3. Yes, that is about as low as it can get in Warhammer 40k. We'll explore it later in more detail, but at face value, it means that unless you're aiming at equally low toughness troops choices like Guardsmen, then you'll be getting a fairly low ratio of successful wounds through on average. So far, still pretty mediocre, I know. Lastly, there's no AP on these, so troops decked out in power armor that typically give a 3-up save are going to shrug off a lot of wounds. Even worse, if they're 2+ like Terminators, Custodies, or like Mega Knobs, then yes, that really does neuter the hand flamer. Also look out for troops with 3-up save who are in cover, which also pushes them up to a 2-up. So I feel like now we have set the scene, it's time to address each and every reason why I think that they still perform and make their shit looking stats hugely deceptive. Number 1, automatically hitting. Removing the need for your guys to have decent ballistic skill is very, very liberating. Remember, Acolytes and Metamorphs have got 4+ ballistic skill, which is shit. It means that you don't care about that. It doesn't matter if you shoot through dense terrain. You don't care at firing at units that are sneakily fast and have a -1 to hit rule, or like aircraft or stuff like that. You just count your shots and it's on to the wounding phase. Number 2, weight of dice, or in other words, the theory that if you throw enough dice at something, it will die. If you've got a squad of 10 hand flamer lads, each of them is going to be rolling d6 shots when they line up a target. That's a potential, maximum of 60 shots between them. But of course, you won't get that realistically. Personally, I always used to find that 36 was my lucky number. The end result is that typically, you might get 10 successful wounds through against something that's toughness 4 or 5. And then they're likely to fail a certain amount of saves. These numbers really stack up and just add to the chipping effect when you're fighting tough units. But let's say if you're up against weaker, lower toughness infantry, you're going to really hurt them. You can wipe whole squads instantly. It can be really demoralizing for opponents who bring big screens of chaff units, assuming that you probably won't have the dedicated anti-infantry shots to get rid of them. You know, like they expect that some people might just bring really heavy hitting stuff and then they won't be able to deal with all this massive chaff. Well, we can. We've got it covered. Number 3, Crossfire. I'm going to cover this quickly because it's necessary for the most important new feature, which is going to be coming next. I'll assume you know what Crossfire does, but actually for you clueless muppets out there, for some reason watching a deep dive cult video without knowing how Crossfire works yet, in a nutshell, one of your squad shoots at an enemy. If you get 5 or more hits, you put a Crossfire marker on them, and then every other one of your squads who fire at that same target afterwards get +1 to hit. So it makes total sense for you to expend your auto-hitting weakest weapons first, like HANDFLAMERS, so the big guns in your list can open up next and get that +1 to hit buff. HANDFLAMERS auto-hit, so they cannot actually benefit from Crossfire itself, they don't need it. Some people literally just chuck a few HANDFLAMERS in each squad, enough to make sure that they're going to get that token, maybe 2 or 3, just to fulfill this task with no damage expectations at all. Those few pistols are literally just there to lightly smolder their target and set up the next step for your seismic cannons, your lasers, your missiles and all that kind of shit. Other people like me actually try to do as much damage as they can with them, and the fact that Crossfire gets added afterwards is just a sexy little bonus should I want to try pumping a load of shotguns or something else, into the same target. Number 4, Exposed. So this is the phase 2 step of the whole Crossfire thing, and it synergizes hard with HANDFLAMERS. Firing at an enemy unit that classifies as exposed gives you +1 to wound. So suddenly your HANDFLAMERS are not just wounding on maybe 5s or 6s against average toughness infantry, like Space Marines. Now they're wounding on 4s or even 3s against really light infantry, guardsmen and stuff. This means that suddenly your opponent is going to start suffering a big increase in casualties. To get exposed on them, all you need to be able to do is draw a line from the squad that is shooting through the enemy target and across to one of your other squads who've got the Crossfire keyword. If you're also within 12 inches of that enemy target, which you usually will be because you'll need to be to use the HANDFLAMERS, they also won't get a cover save bonus. It is, really simple in theory. In practice, it can be a bit tricky to learn the nuance of setting it up. A lot of people just use the cheat characters, as I call them, like the Jackal Alphas, or just by getting planning upgrades like a Perfect Ambush, which grants you automatic exposed. Plain and simple though, this gets you loads of potential kills, and being able to strip cover from the target too prevents anyone with a 3-up save, like these Marines and stuff, getting up to a 2-up save. Number 5, Overwatch. This is fairly simple. If your opponent wants to charge into a big squad of acolytes or metamorphs with HANDFLAMERS, you could very easily cut them down to size. Remember, flamers are just as effective in Overwatch as they are in your normal shooting phase. You don't have to roll 6s to hit. You hit automatically. You won't be able to benefit from exposed because that's only in play in your turn. The Crossfire markers are removed at the end of your turn, so they can never be in effect in the opponent's turn. But, still, I used to use, loads of HANDFLAMERS in the old codex before all this shit was even a thing, and I torched countless characters and orc hordes and shit who just carelessly made a charge declaration without considering what was about to hit them. Number 6, shooting into combat and controlling the fight phase. Let's say you've got a big gang of acolytes who find themselves in combat. They get charged or whatever. Any of those who are still alive in your next turn to come can fire those HANDFLAMERS directly into the faces of the enemies they're tied up with. They're pistols, remember. Be sure that in your previous fight phase, once you've done your melee attacks, you've got to consolidate your troops so that as many pistol wielders are within 1-inch engagement range of the target, so that as many as possible can fire. You have to be within 1 inch to fire ballistic weapons like pistols into combat, and that's on a per model basis. This is a great way to thin out the enemy ranks before the fight phase comes around again, or maybe even totally finish them off so you can free yourself up and charge elsewhere afterwards. If you want to get that +1 to wound exposed bonus on the enemy, there's only one way to do it really. My tip will be to use a Nexus to pre-plant a Crossfire token onto that enemy unit and then move around behind them with something else to ensure the line can be drawn between. When it comes around to the shooting phase, your guns in engagement range, all those pistols, they're all set up to get that buff. Also, this trick is very important if you intend to control the fight phase that will be coming up. Since it's your turn and neither you or that enemy squad have charged, they would be fighting first, not you. By planting that Crossfire token on them with the Nexus, or just by flaming them with the HANDFLAMERS, regardless of whether you're getting exposed or not, you'll then be able to trigger the Fight's Last stratagem, Coordinated Assault, and yay, your acolytes will get to punch first rather than being slaughtered. It's an absolute bacon saver, trust me, especially if you need mass hypnosis elsewhere or if it fails or gets denied or something. Number 7, Inescapable Decay. In my eyes, the best thing that Rusted Claw has got access to. This psychic power grants you an extra -1 AP against a single target that you cast it on, which is awesome. It means that your whole army gets to benefit from shooting that target rather than, you cast it on just one of your units and they just get -1 AP. This makes standard ballistics like shotguns awesome, and more importantly, obviously, handflamers. I mean, oh my god, 15 handflamers with -1 AP, +1 to wound, and no cover save option for your opponent can be a nightmare combo. This even allows you to scale up and start hurting big stuff like dreadnoughts, knights, tanks. Remember, most of them only have a 3+ save. If you're wounding them on 5s in such large quantities, oh my god, when they start losing wounds on a 4+ save, they are in trouble. I mean, you might not kill them in one go, but getting the hurt on them in such an unexpected way is a really damn good start. In the case of most light infantry or orcs, they'll barely get a save at all. It won't even be funny. You'll probably just feel a bit cruel, actually. So many times I just end up apologizing to my opponents because this can be so brutal. So yeah, I think there's some pretty decent reasons there to bring at least 20 or so in a list. If you lean heavily into acolytes anyway, like I do, then it's just plain common sense. Remember what I said about having tricks and tools in your back pocket to get shit done. I mean, reasons not to take them: cost. You tend to be advancing with a squad that won't get to use them before they die. Maybe you're anal about modelling your units with the correct equipment to match the rules and you already did auto pistols stupidly. I can't think of any other reasons. Personally, in my current list, I bring a 15-man squad with a perfect ambush upgrade, just the basic claws, all with handflamers. I drop them in from deep strike, usually in turn 2, and just clear a whole sector of the board, getting rid of shit that's going to annoy me. I'll also have 6 each in my 2 truck assault squads. These push up the flanks in turn 1, clear any chaff infantry with the flamers and demo charges from the truck's cargo hold, and then turn 2, the acolytes hop out and get busy with the rock cutters. Before we wrap up, let's sort a quick list of prime targets who just love getting toasted. So stuff it's good against. Imperial Guard, obviously your basic infantry squads and Tempestus Scions even, they're easy to wipe. Just remember that they can buff their saves from a Psychic Barrier cast and also the Take Cover stratagem. Sisters of Battle, most of them have a 3+ armor save, but you'll be wounding so many of them since they're toughness 3, it just won't matter. Just watch out for their flamers themselves because they can bring shitloads of them and they hurt just as much as ours, if not way more. They even have a strat to auto-roll all 6s for the amount of shots on their flamers, so that's like our tactic but on steroids and crack at the same time. Tyranids, loads of the lower life forms like Termagants and Hormagants are easily burnt to death because they've got shit saves, and most of their midweight infantry like Hive Guard and Warriors only have 4+ armor. Orcs, these are perfect targets. A basic 6+ ragtag flak jacket is all that stands between the average orc footslugger and an ashy grave. Lots of their buggies have got shitty saves too, so capitalise on that. Other Genestealer cults. If for some reason you're in a civil war, just note that our own troops hate being flamed almost more than any other faction. Mechanicus, again, toughness 3 troops, average armor saves. I can't say I'm an expert against these though, so don't take my word for it. I know they can layer on lots of different buffs and shit like that. Craftworlds or Eldari or Eldar for you old bearded types. I mean, they've got a new codex which is coming out imminently or might already be out, I'm not sure. So I can't really say, exactly what's going to be the state of play there. I mean, I've heard that it's going to be amazing. But the point is, a lot of them still are toughness 3, and that is always a good place to be with handflamers. Death Guard. Now, they might be the kings of durability, well, until Custodes show up, but regardless, their damage reduction doesn't help them one bit against spam fire like this. Poxwalkers especially go down so easily to handflamers, so take note. Necrons, this is a tricky one because on paper, they're a great target. Your average warrior will die quite easily, but they just have that knack of clinging on. For me, it's always, there's one warrior who always lives, and then a shitload of them just revive, and you're left feeling a bit underwhelmed and just like, oh, that should have been better. Just make sure you finish off each squad properly, don't split your fire too much, and try and take care of them all at once. Tau, again, the new codex just came out. I haven't really had a chance to fight them yet, but on paper, their infantry sure won't like being hand-flamed. You know, they're weak. I know that people bring a lot of crew as screening. They're toughness 3 as well, so just, you know, get stuck in. Demons. Their entire army may have 5 up invulns or better for being demonic, but handflamers don't care one bit about that. Space Marines, put simply, you will always kill some Marines, and that pisses them off. They have so many ways to try and mitigate the damage, but at the end of the day, let's assume handflamers aren't the only toys you're going to bring to the fight. Just get a few killed and then layer on all the other damage afterwards. Now, stuff they're bad against. Custodes. Don't expect a single thing from this. If you manage to swamp some of their infantry in enough flame, you may get lucky and kill a single model. You know, you'll need like 3 wounds to go through, which is a small victory. But against Custodes, you need to plan to hit them hard, like very hard. Anything less just won't cut it. Terminators of any variety, the same goes. A 2-up armor save is really going to cut the balls off your strategy here. Your ratio of success just plummets no matter how well you're wounding them. The Thousand Suns, they're actually in a bit of a better position because they get access to All Is Dust, which means that if you hit them with anything which is damage 1, they get +1 to their save. So it's kind of like they're always going to be in cover and we can't stop that. So yeah, that's not great. Harlequins. These guys had access to something called the Veil of Illusion. It's something the Shadowseer can take, I think. But I'm not sure if it's stayed in the new codex because, you know, that's being released as we speak. But this basically reduced your weapon's range by 6 inches, so it was really bad for handflamers. You know, it would cut them down to 6, and then you're probably going to be out of range unless you manage to get really up close and personal. In the first game, in the first ever tournament I played in 9th, this cropped up and it just screwed me hard. It didn't help also that my opponent was a cheating cunt in other areas, but whatever. Feel no pains. This can really also cut down your success ratio. The enemy always seems to roll well on these, don't they? You know, so it'll just keep loads of their guys alive. Toughness 6 and above, for obvious reasons, anything that you'll be wounding on a 6 is not a great target unless you can get exposed on them. And even then, it's basically down to the dice gods to see how many wounds you're going to get through. If there's any other unique little ideas I've missed, you know, any combos or whatever, please let me know in the comments. Tell me how you use your hand flamers. Let's get that discussion rolling. And thanks again for watching.